We move on to do a full reaction to Real Madrid defeating Villarreal, and then we'll also discuss Dani Carvajal's injury. Good win for Real Madrid defeating Villarreal, who before were third place, I believe, in La Liga, and they played some really good football, and for Real Madrid to defeat them 2-0, pretty comfortable victory with the opening goal coming early in the game for Real Madrid, which allowed them to settle down, to allow the crowd to get into it, and yeah, and then an amazing goal from Vinicius, who I was a little bit critical over after that little game. Wonderful goal to make it 2-0, and now they found themselves level with points with Barcelona. When they got that win, Barcelona went on to get that victory against Alaves a day later, 3-0. So Barcelona right now are 3 points ahead of Real Madrid, 9 games in, which for how mediocre Real Madrid has been, dropping points in 3 different games. They're still won 6, they're draw 3, they haven't lost a single game. So they still find themselves within striking distance with Barcelona, only 3 points, which is not a lead at all. There was a point period where it was a 4-point lead already through 4 or 5 games, and so it was good. Real Madrid, they're being consistent. A little bit of luck early on in the 14th minute with the deflection, with Valverde's strike, and then and yeah, it was a good win. It was a good win overall for Real Madrid. I think they've had a good response since they had that bad loss to Lille. That was a really good response, that 2-0 win. For that disappointment, for the negativity around Real Madrid. In the newspapers, there was some huge negativity. I think it's a good way to settle it down. I think the Villa playing a team that, Villarreal, that's a respectable win there, came at the right time with the pressure mounting, with the criticism, for them to have their chance to, get this result. Really good win. Now in the negatives, we'll get to the Dani Carvajal thing later on, which is a bad loss. I think Kylian Mbappe was really poor, I do have to say. Really poor Kylian Mbappe. He was really bad, in my opinion. He looked like early La Liga Real Madrid, and he's been pretty poor since he's returned from injury. Yes, he's playing through something right now. He didn't have a single shot on goal. He wasn't lively in dangerous areas. He wasn't involved in play that much. He was almost drifting, He was almost drifting. Wasn't really involved with play. Didn't really, try to get too involved. Was a little bit isolated. Was a little bit distant. Was almost in his own world. And, maybe the injury has a little something to do with it as well. Returning a little bit earlier than maybe he was supposed to. But he was just not good enough. He was not involved, and if you didn't, if you're watching the game as a neutral, you probably forgot Mbappe was even playing. You probably didn't even he just didn't get involved, and he needs to start developing some sort of consistency at Real Madrid, I do have to say. I think the performances in general for him has been inconsistent since the 2022 World Cup. That he had a pretty crappy Euros. I think he had a, okay season at PSG. Did well in La Liga. In Ligue 1 in terms of goals and assist numbers. But overall had an okay, mediocre sort of season in last season at PSG. I think... yeah, it's a little bit concerning. I thought overall in midfield, great. I thought Villarreal and Luka Modric played a really good game, I do have to say. Luka Modric, that looked like the old Luka Modric. And yes, once in a while he is capable of that. he was able to pull the strings in the midfield. He was the composer. He dictated tempo. He was a good connector in midfield, and he played a really really good game. Federico Valverde, one of the most underrated players in the world. He got that opening goal through the deflection, of course. But the amount of ground he covers, the amount of work he does, being able to drive the ball into attacking areas, and then all the covering he does, the running he does, the space that he covers, and then his ability to do the defensive dirty work as well. Get interceptions, do the dirty work in terms of getting the tackles in. Not being easy to play against. He has that nature where he can control the ball and he can take the ball forward. And he can pass the ball, but he also has that defensive nature to him where he's willing to do the work, and he has the ability to go up, join attack, and drop, and do all that work and defend as well. He has the capacity, the lungs to do that, and then he's also giving you bangers as well. That's a boss man right there. Underrated player. He's a sort of player. I'm surprised he hasn't had that huge impact in the international tournament for Uruguay yet, because he has that quality. And he has that ability as well. He's a brilliant player, and yeah, and by the way, speaking of him, Uruguay, he confirmed Luis Suarez's points about Marcelo Bielsa. If y'all know a little bit of that was going on, he's went to a point he didn't exaggerate at any point. Wow, that's a crazy thing for Federico Valverde to say about his own, manager. But that's a little bit off topic. But we'll probably get to that later on. Actually, we'll probably get to that in the top headlines. We should get to that. But yeah, what a player he is, Federico Valverde. I just want to tip my cap. He's a great player. What was the other talking point? Oh, Vinicius, I thought he played a pretty good game. He had that really good goal as well. I want to send my respect to him. Dani Carvajal, sad injury for Real Madrid. Dani Carvajal, that almost larger than life figure for them. The legend, how many years we seen him play right back. Now he's 32 years old. On the aging end, tearing his ACL. And he suffered an LCL injury as well. During the late in the Madrid 2-0 win, you could tell right away there was some issue. You could tell that there was an issue with him, and yeah, it's a bad injury for Real Madrid, because they don't have that much depth at right back, with Dani Carvajal going down, that's an issue. There's limited depth in that position, and in generally historically, in general, fullbacks over the last 8-9 years or so hasn't been the strongest part of Real Madrid's team, with the on both sides, generally it's been Ferland Mendy and Dani Carvajal. They're not Dani Carvajal, he's a really really good fullback, one of the more older school fullbacks, and he's a leader as well. He'll do the defensive work and he'll show up in the big games. You remember, that performance against Luis Diaz in that Champions League final. I mean, he was absolutely magnificent. He scored the goal in this past Champions League final against Borussia Dortmund to open the deadlock, that late winner. And the fact that, the only other replacement you have right now is Lucas Vazquez, that's not even his primary position. That's something he's going to be filling in. With the transition he's had at Real Madrid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a hole there that Real Madrid need. Maybe they'll address it in January with some temporary solution and a loan or something of that sort to bring in someone temporarily. But and also shout out to Real Madrid as well. They extended his contract immediately after, I think it was his existing contract was gonna expire at the end of the season, but to support him, he's won 6 Champions Leagues in 11 years at Real Madrid. They announced that they announced a new deal until the summer of 2026. The club announced, so that's a sense of respect, and that's really a great thing for the club to do.